So that film was produced by the denomination and is reflective of commitments that have been made at the General Assembly level about what they are encouraging churches in our denomination to do to get involved on questions of gun violence, okay? And we were talking about this at the 8 o'clock class. Some of the things, there's debate about. So I just want to mention some of the things, because this is our last class on this topic. Next week, we'll have Don Kniebel in talking about the Jewish experience, which I think is going to be a fantastic class, looking at some of the history of Judaism and their experience and the relationship with Christianity. Because Great Banquet is here next Sunday, we will meet in the common room, and that'll be in the bulletin and everything, so it's downstairs on the second floor. It's one of those deals where we'll be there, then we'll be here, then we'll be there, then we'll be here. So you're going to be a little every other week, because Great Banquet, the men meet, and then 2 weeks later the women meet. So, okay, but let me just mention some of the things that have been recommended by our denomination, by our General Assembly, for ways that we can get involved as individuals and as communities on this question of gun violence. And some of these will seem obvious, but I want to encourage you. And before I say that, let me say one more thing. Why talk about these things that we can do? And Kevin's going to talk some about that at an even more, get your hands dirty sort of level, okay? I sometimes feel one of the reasons we've done this class is that we hear about these shootings and we think about the massive changes in culture and legislation and lobbying that's going on, and we can feel like there's nothing I can do. There's nothing we can do. And it makes us passive in the face of these challenges. And for me, I really want to work against that. I want us not to think of ourselves as just passively floating along in a social stream that is not the way we want it to be, but thinking there's nothing we can do about it. Maybe we pray, hopefully we do that, but part of the whole point of this is to say, how can we get involved? So let me mention some things that our General Assembly has said, and we might just think for a minute about what we can do, and then Kevin will get here and we'll hear from him. But one obvious thing is contact our congresspersons, the people that are making legislation. Get in touch with them and let them know what you would like to see happen. So, for instance, our denomination says, get in touch with your congressperson and ask them to support universal background checks and a waiting period for all gun purchases. We don't have that right now. Lots of contexts. You can buy a gun with no background check. So can that law be changed? That's not saying people can't own firearms. It's saying that mental illness, domestic violence, felony convictions, for any number of reasons, there might be reasons to say, this person isn't somebody that we want owning a firearm. That's not the law right now. Second, restore funding, federal funding, for the study of gun violence as a public health issue. We've looked at statistics and different figures over the course of our class, and one of the things that I've tried to say regularly is one of the challenges is, what are the right numbers, And so I've tried to be very faithful to only providing numbers that are they're verifiable amongst trusted sources about what's actually been reported. So police statistics, federal health statistics, but there's a lot of other numbers out there. We've had a couple people mention this study that showed there have been, on an annual basis, there's something like 2.5 million crimes that have been stopped because somebody had a gun. Okay, but you look at those numbers and you find There's no way to verify it. It's self-reported. It's based on surveys. Some of the people that did the surveys have an axe to grind in the direction of let's arm everybody. On the other hand, you get other surveys that say 90% of all Americans are in favor of X amount of gun legislation, and you find out that the people that did those surveys are people that want to see those policies implemented. So they're not entirely trustworthy from an objective standpoint. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. One of the things that would really be helpful is if we could have federal study on this issue, right? So that you could have the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, actually compiling reliable statistical information. So that's another thing. You can contact your Congress and say, I would like to see that funding restored. And thirdly, contact your congressperson and ask say that you support, this is our denomination, right, a ban on assault weapons. Weapons that are made primarily for the military that are designed to kill as many people in as rapid a fashion as possible. We used to have such an assault, we used to have such a ban, it's been rescinded. So there's something we can do. And if you care about this issue, find out who your congressperson is, give them a call, write them a letter. Second, so that's sort of contacting folks. Second, identify organizations in your community engaged in gun violence prevention and get involved. Okay, this is another thing you can do. Who are some of those organizations? I'll introduce our speakers in a minute. Quick, do you have projection?
We won't need it.
Okay, great. So Jamie, can you get Kevin mic'd and set up the handheld? We'll all finish here. So identify organizations in your community engaged in gun violence prevention, like Moms Demand Action Indiana, Hoosiers Concerned About Gun Violence, Purpose for My Pain, We Live Indy, which is a student organization. There are organizations in our community working vigorously at preventing gun violence and supporting the victims of gun violence. We can get involved. Third, contact the mayor and city council. Ask that steps be taken to prevent gun violence. These folks are our representatives. We vote for them. I think Kevin's going to say a little bit about the mayor. So again, let our voices be heard, and then ask leaders of faith communities like ours, but others as well, to address gun violence in worship services, preaching, liturgies, prayers. One of the reasons we're doing this class is because our leaders did that last spring in the aftermath of Parkland. Can we continue to do that? Education classes, that's why we're doing this, right? The point is, how can we get involved and try to work at making a difference? Okay? Things are not going to change if people who are concerned about the issues don't do anything. And so way back when we started the class, that's how we opened, saying it's great to pray. Don't stop doing that, but can we do more than just that? And here at Second, Lewis Galloway started this saying, yeah, we want to be more involved in making a difference. Okay, so I am thankful to have Kevin Perry and some of his friends with us. I'll let him take care of those introductions. Kevin is a member of our church, and he has been active in working at doing things about gun violence, and he's going to share some of that and talk to us, I think, about how we can be further involved. So I'm going to turn this over to Kevin. Please welcome him.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I really greatly appreciate John giving me an opportunity to share with you guys. My name is Kevin Perry, of course. As John just says, I I consider myself a community activist because I've been working in the community that I've been working in for over 21 years. I do a not-for-profit organization called Alpha Foundation for Youth that I started back in 1996. We just celebrated our 21st anniversary this year. I wanted to really truly speak because when I first got involved with this movement, it was because I had lost people to gun violence. Today I can say that I've lost over 20 friends and family members to gun violence. 3 cousins, my best friend was killed not too long ago, about 4 children that have come through my program, and just people that I've known over the years. I was sitting at my desk this morning, I was going to make a list, and I was going to be really dramatic, just read it off. I'm sitting like, I don't want to be that dramatic, but it was pretty lengthy to know more than 20 people who have lost their lives to gun violence. And so I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about what I've been involved with. I've met this great pastor, Pastor Jawan Bars, about a year ago, that was involved with an organization at the time called IndyCan, but now they go by Faith in Indiana. And they have started this initiative called Live Free, which actually addresses gun violence reduction, mass incarceration, and a lot of topics that kind of go along with those issues. You know, there are some initiatives that are taking place here in Indianapolis. The mayor has embraced Live Free in this violence reduction plan, and we've actually began to put it in place. He's hired peacemakers. If you may have heard, that's actually a part of the plan that Live Free brought to the city of Indianapolis. This program started back in Boston. I think it was known then as Ceasefire, and it's kind of evolved over the years. I was really blessed to have went to a peacemaker boot camp in Atlanta, sponsored by PICO, which is affiliated with Live Free and the Faith in Indiana organization. A wonderful pastor by the name of Michael McBride started this organization back out in Oakland, I believe, and just wanted to address this rising numbers across our nation of homicides. And so he took a page from Ceasefire from Boston, and he's kind of took it from different cities, major cities who are being plagued with high violence, high gun violence, and he's kind of helped them mold that basic model into something that fits their city that will kind of help bring these numbers down. And what really surprised me was, like most people, I thought, like, you know, we had 100 plus homicides last year. So of course, when I first, you know, before I got aware of what was really taking place, I'm thinking like, we got 100 some odd people running around here shooting people up because we had 100 some homicides. Surely to God, you know, there's not one person committing all these homicides, but what I did find out was that it is a very relatively low number of individuals that's committing all these crimes. It's not like our city has 100 people running around here with guns just shooting up everybody. And Rosie will probably explain a little bit more about that as she gets into, I don't know, when you gonna touch base on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing a pretty good
Well, what I found out was, and I'm just regurgitating information that I've taken in over the years through Faith in Indiana, because like many people, of course, I'm thinking that we got all these people running around here killing people. But what we found out was there's a very small number of individuals who repeatedly are committing these types of crimes. And what we found out is if we can reach that number and kind of start working with them, giving them all the alternatives, you know, helping them get the skill sets or whatever they may be missing that has them on this path that leads to destruction, because there's indicators that either you're going to either kill somebody or you're going to be killed. And so we want to kind of work with that population to kind of help them move in a different direction and put those guns down. Live Free is a great initiative. It's a great organization. They're growing rapidly, and of course they could use our support. And that's one of the reasons why I invited Rosie to come speak today, because I really believe in this initiative. I really believe that if we all, people of faith, just wrap their arms around this and do what we can from our perspective. You know, every little bit helps. You know, my mother always said, you know, individually these fingers are just fingers, but you put them all together, you make a mighty fist and it can strike a mighty blow. So I believe together, if we can just join the initiative that's already being set forth for the city through Live Free, wrap our arms around the violence reduction plan that the mayor has put in place. Mayor Hogsett and Paul Babcock, which is the public health director, and Terry Carey, which is the prosecutor, we've all met. We worked on this plan repeatedly. We've been working on this plan, what, for about 2 years now, Rosie? Has it been about 2 years now? For the last 2 years, we have met repeatedly with the mayor, Paul Babcock, Terry Carey, and all the major players to really set this plan in place. Because it really, if it's worked properly, we should see our numbers coming down. Because like I said, there's not 100 people running around here with guns shooting people. It's a very small number. And we just need to reach that number and try to help them move into a different direction. And so Live Free is an organization that has wrapped their arms around this issue, and they've dedicated their mission to try to help us bring these numbers down so our city can be a safer place to live and our kids can be not at risk of, you know, losing their lives over some dumb stuff. So Rosie Bryant is one of the major players with Live Free. She's a community activist. She's a wonderful person. She definitely keeps me busy, that's for sure. She's always like, Kevin, I need you, can you, like, wait a minute, Rosie, you like all over the place. Like, but it's a good thing because, you know, we have to get involved. We can't turn a blind eye to this. I have lost too many young people. Davon, Harley Street murders, Day, him and his girlfriend killed on 18th Street, shot in the car. You know, Wiley shot in the back of the head in his own car. Jaleel White, 16 years old, came to my program when he was 12. They found him shot dead on the east side in the back of in the front seat of his car. Somebody shot him in the back of the head. My cousin Ronnie got shot over on Sugar Road between two houses. My cousin Dennis got robbed and shot in 2012 for about $500, and he died from one of his best friends who shot and killed him. And so this is just an issue that's close to my heart. I've been to too many funerals. I've preached too many funerals. I've prayed with too many families, and just something that, you know, I just hope that you guys can embrace, wrap your arms around. I'm gonna give Rosie the mic because I can be up here talking all day. That's what preachers usually do. But I just wanted to kind of share with you what's really taking place in this city. That there is a very strong initiative to combat this violence that we're experiencing, and Rosie will share you a little bit about how we can get involved. Ms. Rosie Bryant.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I feed off the energy of people, so I'm going to say good morning one more time so I need you
Good
guys
morning.
to give me that energy. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I love that. Thank you so much. So I have Kevin passing out a document that gives a little information about our organization and some of the things that we won. Kevin really didn't need me here this morning. He did a really great job describing some of the work. So I won't repeat a lot of that, but I will tell you a little bit about myself and how I got involved with the organization. So like he said, the organization's name was called IndyCan. We just recently went statewide in April, and so our name changed to Faith in Indiana. We work with over 19 denominations. We have the Catholic Diocese, and we have a big network of congregations within our coalition that we work with. So we're a faith-based organization, and we work on social and economic justice issues. And one of the issues that Kevin mentioned is gun violence, and that's part of our Live Free campaign, and I'm the organizer over that campaign. I started with Faith in Indiana last year, June, when I graduated from college. And so I just want to, that's a good segue for me to just give you a little background about myself and why I decided to organize. So So I actually got my degree in social work, but while I was in the program, I was really trying to figure out like where I was gonna go after I graduated, because I decided like clinical social work was not for me. And so as I was trying to figure out that path, some things were happening to me along the way. So I'm a mom of 3 children, and I know I don't look it, but I have a 21-year-old, and that's just because I'm so beautiful. And so during that time while I was getting my degree, he had just graduated high school from Tech High School. He graduated third in his class, and he received like a huge scholarship that paid for everything, and it was like a big deal. And so we decided to like send him off, because I'm a first graduate of my family from college, and he would be the second. So it was like amazing, because like I had him at the age of 15, and I would have never thought that my life path would be where it was at today. And so when we sent him off to school, you know, we were excited, he was excited, he was definitely excited to be out of my house, and I was excited for him to be gone as well. So he's off at school, and probably like 6 months in, he called me, and he was like really devastated and frustrated. He goes to Purdue University for pharmacy, and he was like, "Mom, you know, in my dorm they're calling me the N-word." And he was wanting to change his school, and doing so would have meant him losing all his funding. And I was devastated as a mother, because I have been working so hard to change my life around so that my children could take a different path than what I was used to growing up. And he worked really hard to get where he was at. And I worked really hard to get him out of my house. So he couldn't come back home. But seriously, I was really devastated that this was happening. And I think there was that moment was where I decided that I wanted to work at an organization that could create a community where everyone feels like they belong, right? My son belonged and deserved where he was at, and he shouldn't be pushed out. You know, thankfully, he stayed, and he's still there. He's not always on what he's supposed to be doing, but he's still there. And hopefully he will be graduating in the next year and a half or so. And so like that was really important to me, to work for an organization that does that. We're not gonna always agree on all the issues and how to make changes to those issues, but I believe that we can come together as people of faith, and we can come together where we do agree and work together. And so one of the things that we're doing this year is we've been working on a huge voter campaign. We've been talking to marginalized voters that people normally don't talk to, because the gun violence strategy that Kevin was talking about, I can't get that done if people don't go out and vote, right? So that's really important. So this year, this is really what I've been focusing on. We have a voter rally that's coming up next week on Thursday, October the 25th at, I gotta see where it's at, I'm sorry guys. And we're gonna be focusing on our get out to vote efforts. We're gonna have 3 phone banks on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, right before the election, so that we can call voters and make sure that they get out. Because I too was one of those people that didn't believe that my vote mattered. And that's because for so long, you know, I didn't see any change in my community that I wanted to see. So I didn't believe that. And it wasn't until, you know, I was empowered and people showed me how it like really matters. I never knew how much like the prosecutor plays a role into the community. And I learned that. And people are not gonna know that unless we actually go out and talk to them. So Kevin, you did such a great job talking about Live Free. So one of the ways, if you really wanna get involved with our organization, I really encourage everyone to be a part of our Get Out to Vote rally. That is gonna be on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You can come to one or all 3. And we're just gonna be phone banking voters and reminding them to get out to vote. We've already been talking to a lot of these voters. We started in August where we did a 6-week canvassing in certain areas in Marion County, and we talked to voters. Then we've been phone banking. Our last phone bank is next Tuesday at New Direction Church. So you're welcome to come to that from 6 to 9. And I'll make sure that Kevin has the dates and the locations for the actual phone bank. So if you guys choose to come, you can just let Kevin know, and so that we can get a quantity of how many people want to come. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yes.
Yes. Is the Presbyterian Church one of your 17 denominations?
Yes, actually. Wait a minute. The one on North Meridian on 38th and Meridian, is that Pres?
It's Methodist.
It's Methodist.
Close enough, though.
Close enough, okay. So that's one of them. That's not one of the congregations that I organize in, but that is one of them. And I believe there's another one on Meridian Street, because I've met with the pastors there before, but it's like on 40th. It's not as far down. It's like in the middle between here and 38th Street.
That may be Methodist as well.
Is that Methodist? I'm sorry.
Meridian Street Methodist.
Well, we may be the first Presbyterian church to
Yes,
join the
maybe
coalition.
so. Yes,
There you go.
and so we're always looking for new congregations to join our coalition and build a team of people that drives this work, because we're firm believers that we don't drive the work, I just create the space. And leaders in the community and our faith leaders really drive this work.
You have regular meetings with Hogsett or
Yeah.
his people?
Yes,
And how do
absolutely.
those meetings go? Can you bring that to life for us?
Yeah, so what we do, it just depends on what we're working on, like the gun violence strategy. So on April 21st, when we launched that we were going statewide, we had a huge action at United Methodist Church on 38th Street, where we had like over 1,200 people from faith leaders, clergy from across the state. Mayor Joe Hogsett came. We also have smaller meetings with just the mayor and Paul Babcock, which is like his right-hand guy. Excuse me, guys. I have a little cold. Excuse me. And what we do with that is the faith leaders that have been really involved with our work, we bring them into those meetings. We prep before the meeting and we talk about like what we're going to talk about for that session. So like getting him to get on board with our gun violence strategy.
So could you what's your gun violence strategy?
Yeah, so I didn't bring enough copies for that one, but pretty much what it does is it targets the individuals that are actually like have done shootings or that is likely to be shot. Like Kevin said, when you think about gun violence, and for me as well, you think of like all these people that are like hundreds and hundreds of people. That's what I thought. Would everybody else agree that you thought it was like a lot of people? Well, we ran the numbers, it is actually not. It's actually a small amount of people, right, that are committing the crimes. And most people, I'm talking about like 20 to 30 people. I'm so sorry. 20 to 30 people that are actually committing the crimes. And what you do is when you target those people and you bring them in a room with each other and you pretty much just show them love and caring and real solutions to their problems, most people take it. The media will have you to believe that the poor people are poor and people are shooting just because they don't care, they're lazy, they don't want to do anything, but that's actually not true. Most people just need real solutions. I am an example of that. You know, I had a child at 15, you know, my life just was all over the place, and you know, I don't have not one uncle or aunt that has ever not been addicted to some type of substance abuse. And child molestation within our family is like a generational thing that we're even dealing with still to this day. And to be honest, I didn't know any other life than what I was living, right? So I grew up poor and I got on food stamps myself. I lived in public housing. But also during that time, I actually worked. My job just didn't pay enough for me to get off of public assistance. And once I actually, you know, that's another story, but I found someone that was able to show me a different life and a different path, and that I could do what I really wanted to do, because honestly, I just didn't believe in myself, right? Like, I enrolled into a school, IUPUI, and that's where I graduated. I would have never thought I could actually, like, finish school, because I dropped out of high school, like, I think the 7th grade or something, and I went and got my GED, and I only had the minimum scores to even pass my GED. So when I started school, I struggled. And it was just things that I did not understand, but I had someone that was right there alongside me that God, you know, blessed me in my life with and helped me see a different future. The same thing will apply to these men who are doing the shooting in the community. So that's really simplified, but that's pretty much what it's about. Other questions?
Can you, we have a Live Free standing meeting. Can we share that with them so they'll know?
Yes.
Yeah.
The standing meeting is every 3rd Thursday of the month. Right now, I'm not doing that meeting because we're really focused on the voter campaign and because I'm taking off work in December because this work is hard and I need a break for just a mental health break for a little while. But we'll be starting those back up probably in February. But yes, every 3rd Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. at Missionary Baptist Church. And that location may change.
Christ Missionary
Baptist Church,
Pastor
yes.
G's Church, yeah.
Yeah, Pastor G's Church, yes.
If you know 20 or 30 people are the ones causing the problem, why are they still on the street?
Well, sometimes it just depends. Like I said, like they may not have somebody that's actually reaching out to them. This strategy part of the strategy has been implemented, but not the full strategy because it also takes money to run this program. Because one of the things I didn't mention is that they get a stipend for being a part of the program. And most times they take it because most times people are shooting out of survival. Like, I need to go rob someone because I need money today. And so you pay them like, I think each person gets like $20,000 to $25,000 like for the year. But when you add up the cost of what it costs for every time someone is shot, I mean, it's like millions of dollars. For taxpayers, the police, prosecuting them, like it's a ridiculous amount versus giving that person like a stipend that's like a salary for the year.
Is this what Live Free does? Just one piece of it is
One piece.
providing a stipend and
Yeah.
public counseling, and I'm sure reaching out and
Yes, yes. So Live Free focuses on mass incarceration and gun violence, correct.
We hear quite a bit about gang violence. Is gang violence a problem in the group that you work with, and how can you address it, and what kind of a problem does it present?
I am not going to even try to answer that question because I don't know. I don't deal with gang violence. I deal specifically with gun violence and mass incarceration. So if that's I don't even know if that's like a huge problem here in Indiana, the gun violence. Gang violence. I know in other cities, in other states, that's more of an issue than it probably is here in Indiana. I'm sorry.
We do have some gangs, but it's not a prevalent problem as if you would see it in Chicago or New York or something like that. Now, Indianapolis has identified several gangs that still exist in this city, but they're not at the top of the key as being the key troublemakers. It's mostly just individuals, like she said, trying to survive, trying to figure out, what their next move is.
So we have more prisoners in the United States prisons than any nation in history.
Mm-hmm.
By a lot, not a little.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about mass incarceration, can you help us think about where that is really not serving anybody?
Yes, absolutely. So when you look at the numbers and you look at the people who are actually in jail, most of the people in jail, and I don't have the exact numbers, have a mental illness or a drug addiction. And those are the top two people that we're actually criminalizing. And when you look further at the numbers, most of those people are people of color. And so when we talk about mass incarceration, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about criminalizing people that need help, right? And so we worked alongside Mayor Hogsett and a few other people at the State House on working on a program that gets people in treatment, not incarceration. And so now, I don't know if anyone has heard of MCAT, where if a police officer comes in contact with someone that may possibly have a drug addiction or mental health, they bring out a team of people like social workers, therapists, and psychologists, and a team of people that come out on the scene, and they decide if this person actually needs to be sent to a treatment center instead of incarceration. That was like a huge thing, right? And now the Mayor Hawk said, we knew that they were going to build a new jail. We could not stop that. That was going to happen. But what we didn't want them to do was add more beds, because if you're really about criminal justice reform, you shouldn't need to add more beds, right? You should be trying to stop people from actually coming there. So they went ahead and decided that they're going to build a new jail, but we fought for no more beds, so there's no more beds in the jail. And then also like an actual facility, a treatment facility that's not in the jail. They are not being criminalized. It's going to be on the campus of where the jail is at, but people will actually get treatment. It's like, think of it like a diversion program. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wonder what the mathematical impact of that'll be. I mean, how many prisoners do we have incarcerated in Indiana, and how can we reduce that?
That's one of the ways. That is one of the ways. And I'll get Kevin that information, because I didn't come prepared today to share numbers with you guys. Sorry.
So related to that, so the pipeline to the prisons through the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So do you focus on that as well?
Absolutely.
How are you approaching?
Absolutely.
That?
So if you look on there, one of the issues that we're really trying to push is making sure that we have pre-K for every preschool age children in the state of Indiana. When a jail decides to be built, does everyone know that they decide that by the reading level of third graders, right? That's how they decide it. CCA, which is a private prison company, their model used to be, and I believe this is still their model, this was public, if we build it, they will come. I was like, what? So devastated by that model. And so what we're working on is that, like, if kindergarten is important, pre-K is important, right? And that reading it's literally fundamental. It determines where you're gonna go. When I struggled in college, it was because my reading comprehension was low. That is where I was struggling at. And I cannot emphasize this enough, that preschool is needed for every child, because it's not the child's fault because of the situation that they're in. And so we're really pushing heavily to get pre-K. We got a grant from Robert Wood Johnson, and we're looking at a study that kind of looks at parents who have been incarcerated, or maybe it was the child and now the grandparent is the caretaker, and looking at, like, is it beneficial to have a preschooler that is experiencing that at home in preschool? So yes, we're working on that as well.
Was that part of the thing we did that night at your office?
Yes, that was part of that I had you at.
Okay.
Yes.
She's always gotten me involved in something.
So explain to me, the third grade reading level determines
How many